for them, it's held for others. So it's not Bristol Warren cash. Bristol Warren cash was $6,161,920. Of that, $37,000 was due to another fund. 1.9 million of it was my year-end accounts payable. So yes, Diana, to your point, knowing that I've only got 2.042 left now and 1.9 million in payables last year, you're right, I'm sweating. Bringing our balance down to 4.3 million. Of the 4.3 million, 2.6 mil is committed to the 2% and 2%, which by school committee policy, 2% is for cash flow purposes and 2% is for emergencies. And 1.6 million was assigned by the subcommittee for $800,000 to pay, help with our retiree health insurance for FY18 and $800,000 for retiree health insurance in FY19. And after 19, that goes away too. Okay? The last 2 points I want to make, which I believe Mr. Silver did Thursday night, but housing aid, yes, we do get 1.3 million in housing aid, but that's used to offset that 2.5 million payment for debt service. As well, we earn, we invest any, I have long-term and short-term investments for cash flow purposes, and we do amazing earnings on that, and that too is a revenue source. I budgeted in this year for 45,000. We have already exceeded 45,000. My goal is maybe we'll hit 100,000 this year in interest income, but that's very aggressively, again, investing long-term and short-term. Okay? And we already talked about the fund income. Anything I didn't address? I want to repeat this Thursday night.
I think it's great, Pauline, because I know that there were questions and people, when they see a snapshot of something at a given point in time and things look one way, but you really do need to look at the system, the whole picture of this, and that you can't just be thinking, it's like living, oh, I get $10 in my pocket, forgetting that you owe, so you owe something, or you have to buy bread tomorrow, well, I'll go and do something else with that money and not have enough. But I also think that, as Paul echoed, or said, I'll echo Paul, how's that? Echo Paul, I think it's great that people are paying attention to this stuff, but but that just gives us, puts more of an onus on us, I think, as the school committee and you and Dr. Andre to make sure we're able to answer these questions as forthright and as completely as possible. But you can't judge things on one snapshot day in paradise. Thank you. You do a great job.
Thank you.
2 questions, please, Mike. You brought that number down, 12 million, and kept pecking away at it, down. What was the final number that we actually have?
The fund balance was 4.2 mil, of which 2.6 was assigned to your school committee policy for the reserve, the 2% and 2%, and 1.6 of it is committed to, assigned to our retiree health insurance benefit, 800,000 this year, 800,000 next year. So we carried over the 4.2 mil, but it's assigned to those 2 categories. So the net is nothing.
That was
It's kind of like, on payday, your checkbook has this, and then you write out the checks, and then there's like nothing at the end. Or as my son says, he has too much money left over at the end of his money.
Okay, I thought nothing's where you were going, but you say nothing. Okay. The other point, I don't want to belabor here because maybe other people get it better than I do. The whole unencumbered thing, you use like the heat.
Yep.
for example. I know that there's an estimate somewhere of how much you think we're going to spend. So in my mind, so wait a minute, there's a line somewhere that says, we think we're going to spend this much. We're going to budget this much. But those dollars that we budgeted for this line aren't encumbered.
That's correct.
Because the bill hasn't come in yet.
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Just two things. That was my question about the word encumbered, because it, in effect, in your head, it's encumbered. You just don't know exactly how much it is. And so sometimes that is misleading. And the other thing that I would just remind the public is that when they look at some of these costs, some of these monies that we have put in different funds, and in years past, we've been asked to just take them out. There is no way to put them back in again. So that's the kind of deficit spending that we don't want to get into. If we take that money, then it's not there next year. And we found out this year that that 2% for cash purposes, we might have had to use and planned on the possibility of using because of the budget. So there are reasons for having those funds, and it's not just to stash away money. They actually have a purpose.
You say budget, you mean the state budget.
Correct. The state budget didn't get done, and we still had to make all our payments, and we knew that we had money put aside to be able to make those while they, I'm going to say, fooled around at the State House and finally got a budget signed. So there are reasons for having those accounts, and the last thing I'm going to say is sometimes I've been doing this a lot of years, and it's the same questions every year, and every year we answer them. And thank you for being so patient in answering them over and over and over again. I realize we have new people that come in and don't get the explanation the first time around, but we're just not hiding anything.
I just want to try to make sure that when I'm answering questions with people, I'm answering it correctly. Well, because the way I get asked the question is, if we're paying debt service, why do we list our bill as X when we know we've got it offset by $1.2 or $1.3 million of housing aid reimbursement? Why aren't we just saying the net is what we're asking for? And my response is we put all of our bills there and we use the housing aid as a revenue stream when we're doing our ask from the two local communities. Am I saying that correct?
You are. In fact, the whole 2.5 million is the responsibility of the district. And when we pay it, we pay the gross amount. And as you already stated, the 1.3 from the state is a revenue stream to offset that. We know the net is 1 point something, but when we pay it, we pay the gross amount.
I just have a question. Can you tell me what housing aid is?
Sure. That's from the state of Rhode Island. So we receive housing aid in two forms. So one is items that we bond on, okay? So if it's like a renovation, addition to a building that we have to actually borrow for, that one comes in at a rate, so they will reimburse us 60 cents on a dollar, and it comes in at the rate for which we have to pay it out. So it's about a 60-40 split. The district has to pay 40%, the state pays 60%, and that helps offset that cost. The other part of housing aid is for capital projects. So us being a regional district, we get reimbursed depending on the project. We automatically get an increase because we're a regional. If it's an ADA compliance, we get another 2%. If it's an energy saving project, we get another 2%. So our reimbursements, again, as a regional, go from 63% to 76% for every dollar that we spend. As a standalone district, the reimbursement rate would be 36%.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Holly, that's how we're able to do $11.5 million of projects with 3-point-something million in our capital funds project, because we roll that money over back into the capital projects line so that we can do the next project, and those projects the state already has the information on, and there's a building committee by state law that sets up the priority for those projects so that they will all pay for each other. And that's why Pauline's able to say to you that it's not costing you any money, extra money. It's all rotating within that capital projects line. So you'll see the line go up, you'll see the line go down, depending on where we are in the payment schedule, what we paid out, and the payment schedule, what the state has paid back to us. And so it's a changing number as we're moving along, but we have the long-term plan, and that $3 million will translate into $11 million.
Anyone else?
Just to carry that slightly further, that building committee that Marge is referring to has representatives on it from the community and from each of the 2 local town councils, as well as a school committee representative and administration. So it's not something that's done behind a closed door or without informing people that we're currently going to be standing in front of requesting a budget fund. They participate in approving those plans and those projects, and have been doing so for quite a while now. Any other questions, comments?
Again, I would just like to, go ahead.
Just, you'd mentioned a forum on Saturday about funding. Could you give some more information about that?
Do you want to?
I'm not sure if it's open to the public, but it's Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and it's a information series on the funding formula. I'm happy to share any of that information with you, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, we give classes to school committee members throughout the state, and this is a particular class. They're all for school committee members. It's restricted to school committee members.
Okay.
And so on Saturday, as an example, we feed them breakfast when they first arrive in that 8 to 8:30 category. And then we start a class that ends around noon time. And that particular one that is coming up this week has to do with everything exclusively to do with funding formula.
Okay.
How it originated, why it was done, and what has taken place. It's morphed into more things than it was originally planned. And so that funding formula, the knowledge for school committee members of the funding formula, how it works and everything is extremely important. So we ask for as many school committee members throughout the state to come.
Okay. Great.
And it's at New England Tech at 2480 Post Road in New Orleans.
Just for some additional clarity on the funding formula, I just want to clear up something that to me is half a pet peeve, because we as a school committee constantly get asked, what are we doing to plan for the cut in state aid to education? So let me see if I can say this as clear as possible. Between the funding formula and the recent court decision, it's very clear that state aid to education does not come to the school district. It goes to Bristol and it goes to Warren. It's used by them to offset the expenses of the school district. And the funding formula, when it was implemented, the reason this community, or these communities lose, is because the state, through the funding formula, said the 2 local towns can afford to pay more. so they're cutting back state aid to education. The state did not say to the school district, you can afford to operate with less. It said to the two towns, you can afford to pay more of the cost of education. So when you look at our budget and our revenue streams, we're not the ones who are losing $1 million. The towns of Bristol and Warren are losing $1 million in state aid. The school district, if we lose any money, it's because the towns of Bristol and Warren are not giving it to us or not making up the shortfall. It's one of my pet peeves, because people believe that the funding formula shortchanges the school district, and it does not. It goes, just read Judge Manos' decision, the funds go to the towns, not to the school district. Okay, I'm sorry if I was on a soapbox. Any other questions or comments? No? All right, hearing none, thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
It's great, and as you said, this Google Docs, whatever is not protected, you're going to make sure it's on the website so that people would be able to see it, correct?
The enrollment information is actually through RIDE. So
Yes.
that's publicly available, and there's a really handy reporting tool that you can type in the data, your search component, and it'll run a report for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next on our agenda is an executive session for contract negotiation update. I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session for that purpose. Do I have a second? There's a motion made in a second. Before we vote on that, I just want to say I'm going to recuse myself from participating in that. Although I've been given an okay by the Ethics Commission to participate in it, I choose not to because I don't like the perception of the conflict. So I'm going to recuse myself from that. When the executive session is over, in the first place, there's no action being taken in the executive session, and there will be no votes. When it's over, it will merely be coming out and adjourning the meeting. So can I have a motion and have the vote to go in executive session? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.